All right, welcome everyone to today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. And a reminder that I'm on JApp. JApp is a Jewish application which features lectures from historians and rabbis, as well as episodes of this program. And if you're a rabbi out there and you'd like to get your message out, contact the founder of JApp. Again, go to the website to find that, www.j-app.me, and you can write to the website and say that you want to put your lectures on JApp. The founder of JApp is looking for more rabbis to produce content, so contact him there. And, of course, you can email me, messiahhour@gmail.com. Ever wonder how rain and the weather affects Israel and how our actions affect rain? We do believe that as part of Judaism, our actions can actually affect rainfall. On the line to talk about all that is our favorite rabbi from Sobelzal.com and GerGear.com, Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi, how you doing out there?
I'm good, Ari. How you doing tonight?
Oh, fantastic, and it's great to have you on as always. So let's first talk about prayer in regards to rain, Jewish prayer. We know in the Shemona Esrei that there are different times we say we want rain, different times we say don't. We say Marina Ta, Marina Geshem, etc., Ten Racha, and say Ten Taracha at different times of the year. So talk about that aspect as far as Jewish prayer and rain.
Yeah, I have a good friend in Sfat. In Sfat, we're very rain conscious, right? Because we're close to the Kinneret. Kind of like a weird thing is that in Islam, and this is just a random weird point, but in Islam, they hold Sfat is a messianic town, obviously not for the same reason that we do, the idea that Mashiach comes in the north, but they say that when their Messiah comes, he comes to the Kinneret, and Sfat is the lookout that you can see it happen. Obviously, I'm not endorsing Islam here. I'm just saying Sfat is known even mystically, for whatever it's worth, because of its lookout to the Kinneret. Right? Sfat means to look out or to scout. So all the religions and have their place, I think, in Sfat because of that reason. The Arizal even says that Yeshu was buried just down the street from. That's what the Arizal says. I don't know if people know that. So Sfat and the Kinneret, no matter what culture, religion you come from, there's a thing going on here. And we always talk about the rain. It just Sfat gets a lot of rain, more than most other cities in Israel. And the rain here is very cold. We're up high in the mountain. It's just, the Kinneret is very low in the terms of the sea level. The Tveria is very hot. So that contrast, makes Sfat aware. And a lot of the things we talk about is what you're saying, the davening, the mentioning of rain. A good friend of mine, I never did get back to him on this, but he found, I think, a certain amount of terms used for rain in davening. It's not always just geshem, right? And the language of harmful rain, of rain that is cursed, rain that is blessed. There's a lot of words used. Therefore, there's a lot of different kinds of rain. It's a wisdom. It's a culture. It's part of the lifestyle in Israel in general. But again, in the Sfat in the north, we're very conscious of rain. And as Ari's saying, that the prayers and the holidays revolve around that concept as a central theme, even though it doesn't get that much airtime.
Because I understand that if rain happens after Shavuot, it's considered a curse if it's in that part of the summer. Have you heard of anything like that?
Right. If it how's it go? If it rains, I think too early, it's a problem. I got some coats, and right. After Passover, it'll go to a certain extent. There's a lot of like we're saying, hidden wisdom, and I say hidden. I mean, it's not the common thing that you learn, but it's out there. And it's very interesting. And I've been teaching a lot of things called worlds. Like, our book is called The World of the Ger, because when you look in the Torah tradition, there is a world of the Ger in the Torah. And every genre, every topic has its own world, right? There's a world of, Yavamos, which is the marriages if a man dies without children. There's a world of Nazarite. There's a world of damages. There's a world of divorce. There's a world of marriage. There's a world of this and that. So if you're to compile all the mentionings of rain and concepts and words and definitions, you could come up with a really great treatise or tractate on what is rain according to Judaism and Torah.
All right, now let's talk about Eliyahu Navi, because I understand that there's a Gemara that talks about 3 keys that are held by God alone, and I guess Eliyahu wanted those 3 keys, but the keys are childbirth, resurrection, and rain. Is that correct?
So Eliyahu was given the key of rain, right? And then he wanted to resurrect the child. The child ended up being Yonah. It was Yonah, I believe. Was it Yonah?
It doesn't say that here.
It's always getting mixed up between Elisha and Elijah. Basically, Elisha and Elijah both resurrected a child. One was Yonah, one was Habakkuk the prophet. So the point is, there was a resurrected child that had died, and before God granted that right, God said that how can it be that the messenger has 2 keys, i.e., rain and resurrection, while the master would remain with only 1 key. So God took back the key of rain and delivered the key of resurrection of the dead. It happened, and then as the verse explains in the Torah, the Talmud quotes, God brought the rains in their time, which was a sign of blessing. God, took back the key, so to speak, and we see there's a concept of, tzaddikim, or, masters of creation, having what God calls the keys. And again, childbirth, resurrection of the dead, and rain.
Yeah, this is a prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're continuing the conversation with Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi Katz, let's talk about how much rain is a part of Israel's culture and annual rainfall. Thank God we're at a place right now, we've already hit the annual rainfall for Israel, and it's not even March yet. Tremendous amount of rain, and the snow, when that melts, will turn into rain. So just tell our audience a little bit more about that concept.
Yes, well, we mentioned Sfat, but, the entire country is conscious of this, and one of the big things is the Kinneret water level, which I find this interesting, too, is that if you notice the country, they want to get rid of the concept of the watermark of the Kinneret, right? Because they're producing their own water, what do you call it, desalinization? That's what's called.
Right, where you take the salt out of it, right?
Right. So they have huge factories that I haven't seen them. I think they're, I guess, in Haifa, and Israel wants to market bottled water throughout the Middle East. So they're trying to say that now our water problems are solved, which is kind of it's good and bad, I guess, right? That we don't rely on the Kinneret. I think they say a lot of people don't even rely on the Kinneret in the end. There's other sources. But the Kinneret is a major thing. And when you go, for example, to if you want to go out for Chinese, there's a famous restaurant there called Pagoda, which it's on the boardwalk. And when you're there, in a year like now, you'll see a heightened water level, right? The docks won't look bare and naked. But as years have been, with severe drought, the water level is very, very low. So you can see, the port, so to speak, in Tiberias is kind of embarrassing. It's the way it looks, exposed and really well below where the docking should be. And so this year we've reached our annual rainfall. It's something to follow in Israel every year. And I remember maybe about 10 years ago, we had a lot of rain also. And they said that if we get a lot of rain, they'll open up the reserves. And that never happened, but I always wondered, what it would look like when that would happen. But I guess everyone's kind of dream, a pioneer dream, is that the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, will be restored to full order. And just kind of like even a ceremonial thing. Right? It makes you feel that you're doing God's will in the land, that everything's restored.
And let's talk about living in Israel as opposed to living in Egypt. When the Jews were in Egypt, and Egypt was this world power, they relied on the Nile. They already had the Nile, and Israel doesn't have a Nile. We have to rely on God for the rain. So tell us, is it not an accident that we're here in Israel? We have to pray to God for the rain because we don't have a big water source like the Nile, like they had in Egypt.
So the Nile runs on astrological sense mazel scale. Right? There's mazel that comes, let's say, from the divine providence from God, and then there's mazel like clockwork, literally. Right? So the Nile River every year, I don't know if this is true today. I hope it's true today, but at least biblically speaking, it's true. Is that it floods every year. So that they have a cycle of the fertile time, the dry time, and that you're going to get God's plenty every year. Again, I don't know if the terrain is the same today, so I'd like to kind of know in my own time if it operates the same way. But when you have a system like that, you don't need God. You don't need to be concerned about doing God's will. You just punch in, punch out. You're getting yours, and you kind of won the lottery, right? It's sitting on top of a gold mine, like the oil in Saudi Arabia. They didn't do anything to merit the oil. The oil's there, and they have an infrastructure to get the oil flowing, and there's the riches. Oil might have a shelf life, but something like the Nile never ends, right? Every year, it's going to always overflow, water the crops, and you're going to have your produce and your entire system for your country. America has its natural products, and these are really natural resources that the state of Israel or the land of Israel doesn't have such a thing, at least in this regard. Our rain comes from God, and until they did the desalinization idea, you have to really rely on God's blessing to get your bounty and your produce. So this is the famous thing that Israel has God's providence built in to the success and failure rate of the country, and the nations of the world operate by God's, turning the dial or clockwork mazel mechanism, where things just happen in nature like clockwork, and you don't really need to bring God into the equation. And that really is the essence between idolatry and worshiping God, and how you can come to worship aspects of creation, right? Because the God of the Nile treats me well, right? If I get rich from the Nile, whereas the God of Israel, you have to really do His will and be in harmony with God to get your bounty. And we know that one is false and one is God.
Again, this is a Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Route Sheva, and the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so, and of course the email is messiahhour@gmail.com. Rabbi David Katz, let's talk about, you mentioned Eliyahu earlier, about how he represents Mashiach, if you will, versus Pharaoh, because we're talking about the Nile, and he's somewhat the anti-Mashiach.
Right. I always like there's a concept I like. It's called like the mini Messiah, right? And when you look at European powers, every empire has had its Messiah, right? Hitler was your German guy, right? Why? It's my own personal theory. Like, Germany is great at making a Duchten, Wachten, Nichten, Wuchternacht, right? That's like a screw that goes in the engine of a car. It's not, I just made that up, but you see what I'm saying. They have a culture of making a great car, right? The Mercedes-Benz. And the Nazi regime and Hitler at its head understood, if we stop just making cars, but if we can use the German greatness for military might, we can take over the world. And that's what they try to do. Right? The German army became a big Mercedes-Benz. Well-equipped, well-made army. The German power was put into motion, and Hitler was your leader of the essence of Germany. Right? He was even though he wasn't, I think he was born in Austria, right?
Yeah.
But he was your German, God with a small g. He was the idolatry, harnessing that power. Then you have, let's say, Napoleon in France, right? The ideal French viewpoint and power movement, epitomized by Napoleon. Every empire, Spain had its run of in the expiration days. So you had like the Spanish, viewpoint of their Christianity is to say, We are the true Christianity. And they went and spread Catholicism that still exists as far as the Philippines. So everybody's had their portion God gave them, that grace of God, their Nile, so to speak, perfected it and said, hey, the Nile's so great, I can support the world, and they'll have to come to me. Or, Germany's so great, we make great products, they have to come to me. So the originator of that was Pharaoh. Pharaoh saw himself as the god of the Nile, right? I am basically the Nile, he says. That mentality and the greatness of the Egyptian empire was all predicated on this point of its, overflowing. Pharaoh, let's say, maximized it to its best. He becomes your quintessential anti-Messiah, which is interesting because the term for snake, Nachash, is the same as Messiah, 358. And that's where you have like your Messiah, anti-Messiah character. So again, you see that the Hitler regime, Nazism in Germany, was a great example of really taking a God gift of, let's call it engineering or mentality of industry, and they used it to say, this is the might of our hand, our power, and ultimately their idolatry. Now Elijah in the Messiah program is the one that works with God, right? Receives from God, and really tries to bring God's bounty not to himself, but really to the world. So it's the same kind of concept. It's just that one is driven from supreme ego versus supreme Godism, right? Recognizing God is the master. It's a fine line and subtle distinction, and it ultimately decides who's an Amalekite and who's with the Mashiach.
So it's interesting because one of the reasons I wanted to do the show with you, I don't feel like rain is talked about so much, and clearly it's an important part of Judaism. And would you say that this belief or this concept is almost God versus Avodah Zarah as far as our understanding of where the rain comes from and how we need the rain and we rely on the rain, it comes from God? Would you say it's at that level?
There's a lot of things in that we don't know, or we don't think is the root of something. A lot of mental illness, for example, they find the correlation between lack of sleep, right? And so they say that a lot of the problems, this is theoretical at this point, that there's a defective gene that makes the eyeball unable to metabolize light, right? So it messes up your what's that thing called? Your circadian, it's called the circadian clock, right? Your internal body clock. And then you don't know night and day. You don't process right. Eventually it affects the brain, your sleep patterns, and it can drive a person mad. So you would never associate madness with the inability to metabolize light in an eyeball. So a lot of times you don't see the root, the real cause of a problem. So we look at idolatry. You shouldn't believe in Jesus, or you shouldn't be into many gods, and the nations should come to the truth. So nobody really asks the question, what is idolatry? Right? And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, what you're saying in terms of as a dogma, but as a supported fact, absolutely, we can definitely say that part of what goes into worshiping the one God of Israel is rain, proper perspective of rain. If the world really knew what rain was to Israel, maybe that alone could diffuse idolatry worldwide. It's one of those things you wouldn't think that that's the way it is, but we see it really does have the power on a root level to see where rain comes from, where it goes, what it does, in terms of not the science of it, but the practical end. Does it bring me to worship God, or am I waiting for the Nile to overflow so I can worship myself and call myself a god and basically forget about Hashem? And that's really what it comes down to.
It's interesting because it's in the second paragraph of the Shema. It's really the centerpiece of the second paragraph of the Shema, that if we do the mitzvot, we will get the rain. If we don't do the mitzvot, we won't get the rain. And I remember when I was on Birthright a long time ago, we had a female rabbi on the trip, and she said, isn't it interesting that this still applies to today? And it does, because a person can have billions of dollars, but if it doesn't rain, throughout the whole world, they're not in a good situation. If a person, no matter how powerful they are, if they don't have water for 2 days, or certainly 3 days, that's checkmate. So I'm very happy that we're talking about this on this program, and we're going to take a break in a few minutes, and we'll have more on the other side. But before we go to break, I just want to remind everyone that I'm on JApp. It's a Jewish application that is sharing from big rabbis and lectures from historians, also episodes of this program. And if you're a rabbi out there that wants to put his message or his share on JApp, go to the website www.j-app.me and write, say who you are. The founder is a friend of mine, William Barty. He's a great guy, and he can help you get your message out there. And you can also download JApp from iTunes or Google Play stores. Again, you can go to the website as well, www.j-app.me. You can also email me at messiahhour@gmail.com if there's any topics you'd like me to discuss in the future or anyone you want me to interview. Go ahead and go to that email, messiahhour@gmail.com. Send me an email, and we'll see what we can do. And if you'd like to make a financial contribution to the program, you can do so through my PayPal account, IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. We'll have more after this commercial break with Rabbi David Katz of DerekDeer.com. This is a Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.